okay? And so there's a right order of things. Now, let's take that same story. We're going to invert it and twist it around. And it's going to be compromised. It's going to be twisted around backwards. And now you have the movie Shrek. Okay? Seriously. Shrek is this big, green, ugly ogre. He looks even worse than I do when I first wake up in the morning. Okay? Ugly guy. Okay? A big monster. And at the end of the story, what happens? Does he turn into a handsome prince? No. The beautiful lady in this story, she becomes a Shrek too. She becomes a Shrek-ette. So what happens is you have good literature, you take it and twist it around so it's backwards, and now you have beauty becoming ugly. And if you've studied, I don't want to get into this too much, but if you study a little bit of the spiritual life, you know that the devil likes ugliness. He likes darkness, ugliness. And so, if you just, and like I said, I'm just going to touch on this, but if you look at like the last 50 years in our American society, things have gotten uglier, okay? There's a lot more horrible examples of paganism all over people's bodies, with gross tattoos and things like that. In this, the dark clothing and things like that among our young people. And these are all examples of ugliness. And I walked into Barnes & Noble the other day, went right to the children's section. I'm going to give a talk on children's literature, so I wanted to look at it. And what did I see? Ugliness. I'm looking at the books, and and you look at these cartoon books, and without even looking at what the titles are, without even looking at the publishers, I just looked at the covers, and the characters, one eyeball's bigger than the other, and they all have this like horrible buck teeth. How many people saw The Last Temptation of Christ? Or I'm sorry, scratch that. How many people saw The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson? Yes. When Judas, the apostle, when he was being hounded by the children who turned into devils, when they contorted their faces, kind of reminded me of when I was walking through Barnes & Noble. I'm looking at these children's books, okay? Contorted faces, buck teeth. Things are drawn out of proportion. It's twisted. This is bad literature. You don't even have to look at the publisher. You don't have to even open the book. You just take one look at that. Nope, not in my house. Not for my kids. Okay? So right away, I wanted to kind of jump into the meat of that. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of other examples. Aesop's fables. That is good literature, and the reason why it's good literature is because there's a moral at the end of every story. Now, I'm not saying that, everything has to be, if a book isn't all sugar, sweetie pie, kind of candy apple kind of a story, then, then we shouldn't read it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that whether the characters in a book follow virtue or whether they're constantly fighting against virtue, the point is, as long as that's not twisted, then it's okay. And so what makes literature bad is that it's this inversion of the right order of things. Another pretty decent book that was written a long time ago is called The Water Babies, and I'll talk a little bit more about where you can find that at the end of the talk. Like I said, virtues may be followed or broken, but the absolute values remain the same. In some of the boys' books that we see nowadays with wizardry and dragons and like that, somebody mentioned, using evil means, and this is the hero of the story, using evil means to achieve a good end. A lot of times that's what we see in some of these dragon books, in the books about wizards and things like that. So they glorify magic for its own sake, and usually do not point to external virtues. And that's a really common thing that we're seeing now in children's literature. The Chronicles of Narnia is a very notable exception to that. Chronicles of Narnia is very, very good literature. With girls' books, let me ask you guys again. What do you think if you walked into like a Barnes & Noble, okay, and you looked at all the girls' books and you said, I think that 80%, 90% of all the books in the store have a common theme. What do you think that theme is? What do you think? Just, modern, secular books for girls about ages 9 through 14. Dating? Dating boys? Okay. Go a little deeper. Give me a little more. Think a little harder. I'm sorry? Materialism. Now we're getting somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Here's what girls' books are about. All about me. You go, girl. It's all about me. Okay? That's kind of the common theme. And so, you know, the dating, the boys and all this stuff, these books are narcissistic. Okay, so I can use kind of a psychological word there. What that means is that it's all about me. Number one. Okay? Self-indulging. And that's obviously not the kind of values that you want to hand on to your kids. And so we have a problem. So what I'm doing here in my talk is I wanted to jump right in with the problem with children's literature.